Have you ever had that one relationship, that one connection with that one ex who just can't seem to let go, no matter how much time has passed or how clear the signals are? They linger, they call, they try to find any excuse to stay connected. For Africa, that persistent ex, that relationship that just won't fade, is the European Union, a powerful entity with a long history on the continent. The EU sees, with increasing intensity, Africa's burgeoning youth population, its vast natural resources, and its untapped potential for growth and innovation. And suddenly, after years of taking it for granted, it's desperate, almost frantic, to stay in the picture, to remain relevant in a rapidly changing global landscape. Billions of euros, a constant stream, flow in, ostensibly as aid and investment, but often dressed up as something else. Partnerships, carefully crafted to sound mutually beneficial and shared values, a convenient narrative for international cooperation, but it's really about, when you strip away the rhetoric, Europe's own survival, its economic stability, and its geopolitical influence in a world that's quickly becoming multipolar. For centuries, spanning back to the colonial era, Europe treated Africa, quite frankly, like a supermarket, a place to pick and choose whatever resources it needed, take what you want, with little regard for the long-term consequences, and pay later, if at all. Now, in the present day, Africa's asking with a newfound assertiveness for the bill, for the accumulated debt of centuries of exploitation. Countries like, just to name a few, Niger and Burkina Faso among others, are rethinking old deals, scrutinizing agreements and demanding fairer terms, and Europe scrambling, holding emergency meetings, to keep access, to maintain its grip on vital resources without confirming the worst stereotypes, the villain, the exploiter, the neo-colonial power. So when you see, in the news headlines, EU leaders, high-ranking officials, in African capitals, smiling for the cameras, remember, keep in mind, this isn't just diplomacy. It's not simply about fostering good relations. It's a high-stakes, incredibly tense power play, a complex game of chess on a global scale. Africa is stepping boldly and confidently into the spotlight, demanding its rightful place on the world stage, and Europe's terrified, deeply anxious of being written out, of becoming irrelevant, of the story, of the future of global power. The script is changing fast, the narrative is being rewritten in real time, and the season finale, the climax of this geopolitical drama, it's going to be wild, unpredictable, and potentially explosive. Welcome to, get ready for, the new geopolitical, the evolving landscape of international relations soap opera. Let's zoom in on Burkina Faso, a nation often overlooked on the global stage, but one that holds significant strategic importance. We're going to delve into why this small country is causing ripples of concern in European capitals. It's a country rich in gold, cotton, and minerals, resources that Europe desperately needs to fuel its industries and maintain its economic edge. These raw materials are the lifeblood of many European sectors. That gold? It often ends up in European markets, becoming a key component of their financial systems and technological advancements, powering industries and tech, driving innovation and economic growth across the continent. But it's not just about resources. Burkina Faso sits in the Sahel, a strategically vital region, a region Europe once used as a security buffer to project its influence and maintain stability in the region. After a wave of coups, French and EU troops who had been stationed there for years were told to leave, marking a significant shift in the geopolitical landscape. Now the EU's out, and Russia's moving in, eager to fill the power vacuum and expand its own sphere of influence. Losing access here isn't just about gold, it's about losing influence, a foothold in a critical region, and access to vital resources. And security, as the region becomes increasingly unstable and vulnerable to external forces. Burkina Faso's government is forging new alliances, seeking partners who can offer support and stability in a rapidly changing world, especially with Russia, signaling a significant realignment of geopolitical forces in the region. And Europe's grip is slipping, as its traditional dominance is challenged by new players and shifting allegiances. This small nation is a symbol of a bigger shift. Africa is choosing its own partners, diversifying its relationships and asserting its independence on the world stage, and Europe is no longer the default. The EU is watching, worried as its old playbook falls apart. Burkina Faso is just the beginning. The continent's new alliances are rewriting the rules. Europe's panic, it's real. The implications of these shifts are profound and far-reaching, signaling a new era of global power dynamics. Europe and Africa's history? It's complicated, and mostly about exploitation. From the slave trade to the scramble for Africa, Europe drew borders, took resources, and left chaos behind. Even after independence, Europe kept control through unfair trade and political meddling. Neo-colonialism by another name. Today, Africans see museums full of stolen artifacts and economies still tilted in Europe's favor. So when the EU talks about equal partnership, many Africans are skeptical. The past isn't ancient history. It's the backdrop for every negotiation today. Trust is hard to rebuild when the wounds are still fresh. Europe's challenge? Acknowledge the past or keep repeating it. Africa's new generation is watching, and they remember. Let's talk numbers, the kind that paint a picture of shifting global dynamics. We're not just talking about abstract figures, these are the metrics that define relationships, power, and the future of continents. The EU's green future? It's a vision of sustainability and innovation, a commitment to a cleaner planet. But this vision has a cost, and it relies on resources sourced from afar. It runs on African minerals, the very building blocks of renewable energy technologies, and the infrastructure that supports them. These resources are essential for Europe's transition. Cobalt from Congo, a critical component in batteries that power electric vehicles and energy storage systems. The demand for cobalt is soaring, placing immense pressure on Congolese mines. Bauxite from Guinea, the ore that yields aluminum, a metal vital for everything from construction to transportation. Guinea's bauxite reserves are among the largest in the world. Uranium from Niger, fueling nuclear power plants that provide a significant portion of Europe's electricity. Niger's uranium mines are a key source of energy for the continent. Europe is Africa's biggest trading partner, a relationship that has shaped both continents for centuries. But this partnership is far from equal. But the deal is lopsided, a system where the benefits are not shared equitably, creating a cycle of dependency and hindering Africa's economic development. Africa exports raw materials, often at prices dictated by global markets, missing out on the value added through processing and manufacturing. Europe sells back finished goods at a premium, creating a trade imbalance that perpetuates economic disparities. This cycle needs to be broken. The real game changer? People. The demographic shift underway in Africa is poised to reshape the world. Africa's population will hit 2.5 billion by 2050, a staggering increase that will have profound implications for global resources, economies, and geopolitics. 1 in 4 people on Earth. This demographic weight will give Africa unprecedented influence on the world stage. It's the youngest continent, brimming with potential innovation and a drive for progress. This youth bulge represents a massive opportunity. While Europe is aging fast, facing challenges related to workforce shortages and pension burdens, for Europe that's both a huge market, a source of economic growth and opportunity, and a source of anxiety, as leaders grapple with the implications of a rapidly changing global landscape. Africa's leverage is growing, a continent on the rise demanding a more equitable share of the global pie. Resources, markets, and a workforce the world will need to drive innovation, fill labor gaps, and power future economies. The EU can't afford to ignore these numbers, to dismiss the changing realities on the ground. Africa is no longer a passive player content to accept the status quo. It's an active participant shaping its own destiny. The question isn't if Africa will use its leverage, its growing influence on the world stage, but how. What strategies will it employ to secure a better future for its people? Europe's future depends on the answer, on how it chooses to engage with a rising Africa. The numbers don't lie. They tell a story of shifting power, demographic change, and economic interdependence. The balance of power is shifting. The old order is fading, and a new era is dawning, and Europe knows it. The question is, what will it do about it? What if Africa cuts Europe off? The EU's green transition would stall. No cobalt, no batteries, no electric cars, factories slow down, nuclear plants face fuel shortages, and Europe's economy takes a hit. Security. With the Sahel buffer gone, instability could spill north right to Europe's doorstep. Diplomatically, Europe loses its global voice as African countries look elsewhere. China and Russia are ready to fill the gap with infrastructure loans and security deals. Europe risks becoming irrelevant, sidelined in the New World Order. That's the nightmare in Brussels, losing resources, security and influence all at once. The stakes couldn't be higher. The world is watching. Africa's choices will shape Europe's fate, and Europe knows it's running out of time. Europe isn't the only one courting Africa. China is the star player now. China builds roads, ports and hospitals, no lectures attached. It's Africa's top trading partner and lender. Debt trap worries. Aside, many Africans see real results from Chinese investment. Russia's strategy, security and propaganda arms mercenaries, and a message, we're the anti-colonial ally. Countries like Mali and Burkina Faso are listening. Turkey, the Gulf states and India are all in the game, too. selling drones, building mosques, investing in ports. The competition is fierce, and Europe's old moves aren't working. The EU is just one suitor among many. Africa has options, and it's choosing. The rules have changed. Europe is struggling to keep up. The scramble for Africa is back, and this time Africa holds the cards. Migration, Europe's hot-button issue. Politicians talk about a wave of African migrants, fueling fear and building walls. But most African migration happens within Africa, not to Europe. The real drivers? Conflict, instability, and lack of opportunity. Often rooted in foreign interference. Europe's aging population needs young workers. Africa has them. Managed migration could be a win-win. Jobs for Africans, solutions for Europe's labor shortages. But that means changing the narrative. Seeing Africa as a partner, not a problem. Invest in African education and jobs, create legal migration pathways, and both continents benefit. The migration debate is a test of Europe's future. Will it build bridges or walls? The answer will define the next chapter. The EU knows it's losing ground, so it's launched the Global Gateway, Europe's answer to China's Belt and Road, promising 150 billion euros for Africa. The EU says its projects are greener, fairer, and more transparent. But so far, Africa's waiting for real results, not just promises. The EU is also changing its tone, talking about listening, co-creation, and equal partnership. More visits, more talk about African priorities, but skepticism runs deep. Colonial baggage and tough migration policies make trust hard to rebuild. Young Africans especially question if anything's really changed. The EU wants to be seen as a true friend, but trust takes more than money and speeches. The charm offensive is on, but Africa isn't easily convinced. Europe's reputation is on the line. The old Europe-Africa dynamic is over. Africa is rising with its own ambitions and partners. Europe can cling to the past, or embrace a real partnership based on respect and shared interests. The future will be shaped by Africa's choices, not Europe's demands. Watch for real investment, fairer trade, and migration reform. These will show if Europe is serious. Countries like Burkina Faso are the test cases. Africa's youth, resources, and confidence will shape the 21st century. Europe can be a co-author or just a footnote. The future is African, that's not opinion, it's fact.